station to station, back for our September playoff push, and back with my favorite battery mate, Dustin. Uh, Dustin, we came into this series with the Texas Rangers with so much hope, but also I think some expectations. And we sit here on Thursday evening, and I think it's not an understatement to say that this has been probably the most disappointing series of the season.
Probably the worst possible outcome that could have happened. I mean, we're talking midway through the final game here, and they're down 4-2. And honestly, I don't have the faith or the belief that they could come back from it. I can't. They've given me no reason to believe that.
Well, let's go through these games. We usually do a more detailed rundown, but I don't think that's necessary for this series. Uh, they've lost every game so far, and as we sit currently, we are in the top of the seventh, and the Jays are down 4-2. So game number one back on Monday was a 10-4 loss. Game number two, a 6-3 loss, and game number three, a 10-0 loss. And as I said, we sit here on Thursday evening, and it is top of the seventh, 4-2. The Jays are down to the Texas Rangers. Dustin, were there any of these games that I don't know felt like they were winnable, or ones that got away, anything of that sort, or was it just were these guys just getting papered all week?
Yeah, I think they were just getting their asses handed to them all week. I mean, probably about 4 or 5 innings into the first game, there was some hope. They took an early lead in the first game, but then they gave it back. They were tied by the fifth, and then 6-7, it was over. And then that grand slam was just like a kick in the nuts. Um, the second game, I can't say that I had any hope for that. And the third game was just they had 5 hits, all singles. Like, what do you do? I don't know. Yeah, I really don't. I didn't see any flashes of promise, and maybe we just got uh, what is it, bamboozled by you know facing a run of bad teams, and they looked okay against the bad teams, obviously, but you know they're just not. They just don't show up.
Oh my God. Okay, that's not Corey Seager. Oh, I'm tired of seeing Corey Seager. Can someone like get him in a body bag before he leaves the city or something?
I
Like,
know, seriously.
I don't know. Like, Corey Seager has been just killing them, and they keep throwing him pitches to hit. Now, saying that the double that he hit off the wall, if Varsho is playing in left field, that's an out, and they're out of the inning. That's 2 runs saved. Dalton Varsho leads the majors in whatever runs saved. They would have been out of that inning. Um, and Whit Merrifield is decent, but Dalton Varsho makes that play 100%.
Absolutely. And I think, that's kind of indicative of how this whole season has been going. Just, you know, it's just like almost there, almost a good outcome, but, you know, just bad luck, underperformance, just not quite what they need to do to get it done.
Well, and at the end of this season, if the Jays don't achieve their goals, there is going to be someone to answer for that, and likely that's John Schneider and probably some of his staff. But I don't really feel like if we actually had to like break this down, right? The team is underperforming, and of course, someone has to be responsible for that. But John Schneider doesn't seem to be the issue for like he doesn't seem to make decisions that really put the team in a position to lose, right? I know on I think it was Monday, I think Yenis Cabrera gave up another home run, and it was one of those. They were already down, so why would you bring in Tim Mesa when they're already down? Do you know what I mean? Like you're supposed to be saving your best pitchers for times that are your saving games. Now, of course, you probably want to stay in that game, but um, I don't know. Like, talk to me about your thoughts on John Schneider because I have my thoughts, but is I kind of have settled on the fact that if this team doesn't make the playoffs, like he has to be fired. But I don't know. I just don't think that he's the issue here.
Yeah, I'm a little bit caught between two opinions on him. On one hand, like you say, he hasn't made any glaring mistakes. And, we're not in the clubhouse. We don't know how he's feeling. To me, the how a manager is measured these days is in player management, in the clubhouse sort of attitude. Can he wrangle these people, manage the personalities, all those things? It's hard to, you know, for us to evaluate that from the outside. And I would hope that the team can do that from the inside. With the all the analytics and all those kinds of sort of fancy ways of evaluating things, and there's so many coaches and advisors, etc., that um, kind of give them the day-to-day decision making tools. I you know I think, like I said, the better way to manage evaluate him is with the clubhouse. I don't know if he's lost the clubhouse or not. If he has, then that's one maybe reason. I mean, I've seen some things on Twitter and podcasts and stuff where people are talking about you know uh, Shapiro and Atkins and saying, well, I think I saw more than a couple things lately talking about Alex Anthopoulos and his success over the last 8 years since he left the Jays, comparatively to Atkins. Um, and I wouldn't honestly, I wouldn't blame Atkins. This is an underperforming team. Almost everybody. I mean, I bet you if we went back and listened to our preseason episode, we'd hear about ourselves talking about how this is a pretty well put together team. He kind of met our expectations in terms of fixing some holes from last year. It's underperforming, and I would say the same goes for Schneider. It's like he's not out there swinging the bats, and you know when you have a team that's underperforming expectations, it's either just the players, some confluence of attitude and preparation, or who knows what. But you're right that if they fail, you can't you can't trade the whole team. You can't fire any of the team that you've got on contract. So somebody's got to pay, and I think it's going to be um, Schneider and maybe some coaches, and maybe they'll get um, Mattingly in there to manage next year. I don't know.
So I think part of the problem, like I do think that I can see John Schneider. I can see why he was a bench coach because he does seem pretty good, within the game. But managers and I guess these like figurehead positions in sports, they're they're basically you're trying to essentially encourage everyone to be on the same page and be pulling 100%, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know how good of a man manager he is. Again, we're not in the room itself. So I think he seems to be good, during the game. Some people, uh, I think like just some baseball fans just kind of seem to think they disagree with certain things, but I don't know. I think there's a lot more that goes into these decisions than just, you know, it's a lefty up, put the lefty on the mound. What? what's the situation in the game? What other what other arms do you have in the pen? Who pitched yesterday? It goes on and on and on. And so I don't really have any issues with how he has managed the team in terms of in-game management. And I think we both have agreed that a manager is there not to lose games, right?
Right.
And I don't think managers really win games. It's the same thing with officials in other sports or umpires or whatever. It's like you don't actually want to notice them. Like if you don't notice them, then they're probably doing their job well. But in terms of Atkins, I think most would admit that this is a well put together team in terms of on the face of it what you would need. I was listening to a past Gate 14 podcast, and they agreed that, like, listen, this team is put together how it should be. It's just not performing. And John Schneider may be the one that bears the brunt of this. I think there's going to be some other coaches as well go, but I think either way, like, and unless this team takes maybe to, I'm going to say, the ALCS and the seventh game, I see it as a underperformance, and there will be changes. Now, will if they make it to the ALCS, does that mean Schneider goes? Well, we can have that discussion at that time of what actually happens with this team, because I definitely will argue people on um, changing the manager every year, because I don't think that makes any sense either. That's not, on one hand you can say, are you really trying to win, or is there apathy? If you're just keeping guys around that are underperforming. On the other hand, changing your manager or your coach or whatever position every single year, that is a recipe for complete mediocrity, because there's just never going to be any continuity. So we'll see where they end up. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. Ross Atkins, I don't think. Um, I don't think he's like, I think he's pretty safe. Obviously, Shapiro is perfectly safe, but we'll kind of see. And I don't know, John Schneider, he doesn't really seem like a big personality. What I would like to see is, I'd like to see them go after, like, should they decide to move on from John Schneider. I don't want another, like, Jay's club guy, that's been with the franchise. I think you need to bring in somebody who's knows what they're doing. Joe Madden, obviously, we all know Joe Madden from his time with the Tampa Bay Rays. He also was the manager that oversaw the Cubs break that long-suffering streak of without a World Series. So he's got some chops, and he's not managing right now. And from what I read, I feel like might be interested in this team, because I think he was looking for an interesting opportunity. Like, he's not just going to come back to manage you know, he's not going to come back to manage the Chicago White Sox, and they're going to finish fourth every year. Like, he wants to do something, it seems like, and I think that'd be someone to look at. But I don't know. It's tricky, because last night, I don't know where I was a bit tired, so I could not watch the full game. But as soon as they went up, and it just got worse and worse, and then I'm about to shut off for the night, because my kid's likely gonna go get up in a few hours, and I look at it, and it's double digits, and it's just embarrassing. Like, it's just not, this is just not acceptable. And I don't know if the pitcher's approaches is maybe right. We have to look back at that, but it's just, yeah, it's just like, it's just really disappointing. Like, it's funny, you go through these range of emotions. From, at the time, you're angered. I don't know, I'm just kind of disappointed right now. There's no
Yeah.
Popeye's chicken.
Exactly. Um, yeah. Just to touch back on Atkins, I do want to talk about the actual pitching performances, but I think if there is one thing I could criticize him and Shapiro on is um, changing your manager twice in within less than 2 seasons. Is not a good look. Um, so. I would say that they kind of failed in that. Not only I don't think um, the either choice and the last two managers have been especially great, and I think this team, given the young talent, the personalities, and the fact that they were, you know, perennial, hopefully playoff contenders, I think it was sort of incumbent on them to get somebody, like you say, like a Joe Madden or somebody who is just, a lot more seasoned and a lot more um, able to handle that kind of team. Somebody like John Schneider, I think you give them, a chance to manage. I think, I like him, and I don't want to see him fired. Honestly, just if Atkins made any mistake, you know, it's that he just didn't hire a manager that um, was appropriate for the position at which this team is at in terms of a perennial playoff candidate. You know, I like John Schneider. I think he's great. I don't want to see him leave sort of personally. He seems like a great guy and probably a future manager. But he's the kind of manager you get for sort of a young team that's just trying to make the playoffs. He's not the kind of guy that runs a good team to a World Series championship. And like I said, if I think if Atkins failed at anything these last, let's say, 2 3 years, it's having both Schneider and um, I can't even remember the one,
Montoya.
Montoya. I think there just weren't great choices, either of them.
Well, I can see why Schneider was given the interim role. Um, I can totally see that actually, but it. I think the time, really the mistake was probably made after after the Seattle debacle, where I don't know if you bring them back at that point. Like if you don't really see it, but they seem to want to show faith in the in the process, right?
Yeah, I think I don't. I think he deserved a chance um, on some team somewhere. Um, and maybe it's just a timing thing. I think they probably felt like they owed him for however many years of service he put in the in the minors. A lot of this team, well, maybe not a lot of this team, but a good portion of this team, at least the core, has come up, in Bo and Vladdy and Biggio and some others, you know, with him, and they're familiar with him. So I think it made some sense on some level, but I don't know. I think if you're just trying to put together a winner, um, you gotta get somebody in there with some pedigree. I mean, they took a shot at him. Maybe I think we're talking about it like it's because it didn't work out or because there's some failure. We're trying to grasp at straws and figure it out. If they were leading the division now and everything was sunshine and roses, we wouldn't be questioning the decision. Um,
Well, no, but that's because this is the results business, right? So
right.
I
Just to
think
get it done, like, yeah.
you're judged based on the decision. Like Ross Atkins' job is to build a team, right, and that competes, and hire a manager who can lead that team. And as I said, I'm in the camp. I don't think John Schneider's done a terrible job, right? I think he's done a pretty good job. Do I think I think a lot of players have underperformed, right?
Yeah.
Is he a great man manager? Maybe he's the type of manager, when young guys are coming up at Double A, he's the guy that puts the arm around the shoulder. Maybe they need to handle things a little bit differently at the major league level. My only thing with Schneider is that I just don't know if he has personality. Like I think you have a lot of guys in that room that have personality, and I think I think you need to have a similarly strong personality. And I just he just doesn't seem to have that. And um, you know, they all like there actually seems to be a lot of personality. Like you have Vladdy, Bo's a bit quieter. You got Springer and Kiermaier, and but Schneider's he kind of just always seems very calm, which is fine. But I don't know if that really gets people, you know, really inspires people to,
Right.
like that. We were complaining about, we were in the chat, and there just seemed to be no heart, right? And I gotta say, like that I hang on Schneider, right? Because it's his job that when the nine players take the field, that they take the field with some purpose, right? And I don't think they've taken the field with purpose on any of the three games. Now, I do want to talk about one other item, and I'd like your opinion on, and it's a bit more up my alley. But I've been extremely disappointed with the fans at the Rogers Center the past. I guess we're now into the fourth game of this series. So we were told, and of course, these are media members that deal with the Jays, but it's going to be a playoff atmosphere, and these are playoff games, and these games are so important. I would agree on all of the above, that these are extremely important games, and they need to be taken as such. I don't get the sense that and again, there could be a split between the hardcore fan base that doesn't come to every game and is more online versus the people that actually show up. But I at no time did I get any sense that the fans that were attending, like, that playoff atmosphere, that buzz when people are just really excited. I haven't got that all week, and and to be honest, I now I I follow other sports where the fans are an extremely important part of the game, and so I'm kind of a believer in that what the fans do does affect things, and does, if you show up in the dugout and there's 40,000 people and it's just buzzing, right? Like, I think that's going to be a bit better than from what I've seen this week. But I'd like your thoughts on this.
Well, I think you're right. I think it's got to be inspiring. It's got to be, we've heard players talk about how that place feels when it is buzzing, when it is packed and everyone's excited. At the same time, you need a team to inspire that. This team is not inspiring at all. Even in this last stretch that, they played against bad teams, I mean, it was hard fought, 10 and 5 over that 15,
Hmm.
right? And and even the wins were just like stressful, like just barely by the skin of their teeth got the win. I wouldn't be inspired by that. I'm not inspired by this. These last four games, I mean, I've probably barely watched half of it in terms of time, turning the games off, when they're just like losing or just doing something else, finding something other else to do. Yeah, I'm just not inspired to watch it. You know, we're here podcasting, and I, I they're losing now 7-2 or something with the bases loaded. Yeah.
8-2.
8-2. Exactly. I didn't even see that last run because I just turned the game off in the background. I don't want to watch it, and so I don't blame people for not going. I mean, you can say, well, it's September and kids go back to school, but I mean, if this team was in a real sort of good spot and was really just pumping people up, they'd be out there. I mean, this town
Oh,
shows up.
for sure. So I and don't get me, I totally agree, right? You know, you have to give fans something to be excited about as well, right? But coming into this series, this team was in the second wild card spot, whereas 2 weeks ago they were what, 2.5 games back? So like their fortunes have completely reversed. And while, you know, each game has not been um, a pleasure to watch, right? As we would say. I don't know, like I it just seemed like another baseball game. And I think this series was the most important of the season, right? And this is where, they could have basically put their, as you said in the last episode, you put your boots on their throat. And this is also a Texas team that came in, I think, 6-14 or 4-16 or something. Like in their last 20, they were terrible. They were
Yeah,
as bad as any of the teams we played. And we've made this team look good, right? This team is look like has looked fantastic. And here comes the ninth run. So it's 9-2 now, sack fly. And you know, there nobody seems to have any answers as to what's going on. Um, I would probably say that this team wrote its pitching and the jig's pretty much up, right? The arms are a bit. It's September. The arms are a little tired. Some
yeah.
calls don't go your way. That's fine, but it just nobody has any answers, and it just looks very uninspiring. But as I said, my opinion is the inspiration's always two ways, right? Because you know what, you go down or something unfortunate happens, and you know what, those players look to the fans, and those fans are they're worrying about their next cotton candy order. I don't. I just yeah. Anyway, that's just my thought. Like I turned on the TV on Monday, and it seemed like you know like those early April games when people are kind of not really, the Jays started, but it's the first Tuesday game of the season, and it's it is what it is, right? That's what it seems like me. It just, I don't know. I was expecting a lot more buzz. I work downtown, and I was expecting more buzz, and it just doesn't seem to be there, and I don't know. I guess I'm disappointed by it.
I get what you're saying. I just think my point is like that has to be earned. Like the buzz
Hmm.
has to be earned, and they haven't earned that. The tickets for early September and are bought a week or two before, and you know how were we feeling, you and I, 2 3 weeks ago, right? Just before that stretch, the 15 games against the sub 500 teams, we were feeling a little down, and we were like, okay, put this, they gotta do this thing. And I mean, they did this thing, but like I said, they did it kind of meekly and not convincingly. And I don't know if you got kids going back to school, and you're looking forward to whatever you're going to do in the fall, and man, I don't blame the fans necessarily for being the way that, obviously I would like this town to be more excited, and I think they could be, but I don't know. You got to earn it, and they haven't.
Well, they got out of that inning, and it's not double digits yet. So I guess we'll take the victories where we can. But anyway, so we are about to go. We're about to finish the series against the Texas Rangers. Looks like they are going to get swept in a 4-game series, and we're now heading into the AL East portion of the game, or of the game of the season, where they will play pretty much AL East teams the rest of the way. So, does this team raise their game, or do they basically play AL East teams like they play AL East teams and essentially take themselves out of it? What do you think?
Oh, man, I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. I mean, I want to be hopeful. I mean, generally, I'm sort of optimistic. I don't think that New York is you know, a particularly scary team. They got Boston at home. You'd think that there's some advantage there. And then Tampa Bay, maybe is just kind of trying to play with the string and maybe isn't going to try too hard. So there's some,
Dustin, hold on. Let me start. So Tampa Bay going into today, we're like 2 games back of the Orioles, and they're starting a series against the Orioles. So I
oh
don't
yeah,
think the Tampa Bay Rays are going to be putting it into cruise control anytime soon.
fair enough.
Ugh.
It's tough. I mean, I know Texas and Seattle played each other like 7 times over that stretch as well. So there's some opportunity for maybe Texas goes on a run and crushes Seattle, and we fall back asswards into a playoff spot. But uh, I mean, I'll just say this: I'm looking at my weekends in October and planning out what I'm going to be doing because I don't have a lot of hope that I'll be watching playoff baseball.
Well, guess I'll save on that month I had budgeted of Sportsnet now. I could spend that, $20 on something else.
Yeah,
But we'll see. I guess that's the only thing we can do is keep those fingers crossed. Seattle does play. Did you mention that they played the Rangers twice, 2 series?
yeah. They have 7 games over this
I
this
think
last.
do you just hope that those two beat up on each other, or do you hope that one just destroys the other and then we pick up some wins? I probably
I
the
think that's it.
latter.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you
you
want
hope
the
that
latter.
Texas smashes Seattle, 6-1 or something like that, and one of them falls off the cliff.
Yeah.
But that's not what you want to hope for. You hope your team just like goes on a run here, but there's no reason to believe that they should or can.
No, and this game, how it started, I think it was started off in its usual frustrating manner when Corey Seager hits a solo home run. He doesn't seem to be able to get out this entire series. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr. follows that up with a 2-run bomb. So it started like, oh, okay, maybe we'll salvage something from that. And that's it. That's all they got.
Yeah.
So it's this limp dick meek offense that doesn't seem to I don't know, it doesn't mesh, it just doesn't seem to just do anything, right? Like how can you win a game when you score 2 runs?
Yeah, I know. You can, especially against these offensive teams. There's just no, like I said, there's no heart, there's no clutch. There's no I know that's kind of a silly thing to be honest, but I mean, there's just nothing. There's no urgency. You know, whatever. I think the team sees it, and I just don't know. I'm at a loss, and I'm sure they are too. I mean,
Well, I see Matt Chapman has returned to his usual self. He steps to the plate 0-2, and he's 0 for 3. So he's back to his usual form. Not that I wish any ill will on Matt Chapman, but definitely no. He provided no spark coming back to the lineup. That's for sure.
no, and I saw that he was coming back, and I said, well, maybe he needs another. day, or maybe he should keep resting because yeah, you should be hopeful that someone of his caliber is coming back, give your team a boost, but it's just, I mean, just the way things are going, this is not, it's not something that you can actually feel.
All right, Dustin. Well, we are in. I think we are going to what, the top of the ninth, and the game is 9-2. Another very quick inning for the Jays. Another inning without. I would. By the way, I would agree. Clutch. I don't know. I don't know how you really even measure that, but what is pretty obvious is like I think heart is definitely something that is you can see and you can feel, and it just doesn't seem like this team is fighting very hard for anything. And I that could be because they're just totally frustrated with themselves and their performance, but it's not really the time to give up. So, um,
No,
but
I mean, realistically, they have a chance. I mean, I think I heard somewhere somebody say that if they got swept here, they'd still be at like a 38, 40% chance of making the playoffs. I mean, that's not nothing.
hmm
But, if they had swept if they had swept Texas, they would have been at something like 80, 90% chance. So,
well,
it's that
they
big of a
they came
swing
into this
to,
with 80 wins, right? So if they had picked up 3 wins or 4 wins in this series, that's almost halfway to that. Basically, you had to get to 90, and
yeah,
almost halfway there, right? So
right.
anyway,
So,
I think Bowden France is in the game. Do you have anything more to add?
no. No, no, no. Let's
For
let's hope they do something against Boston here. Let's hope for a miracle. I'm still hopeful. I'm not giving up yet, but it's hard. It's hard not to feel like
well,
thrown in the towel.
I I will be at the game on Saturday, and if there's one thing that I would hope for is that they win that series against the Red Sox fans, because if there's one group of like the most insufferable fans around, definitely Red Sox fans are close to the top of that list.
True.
Yeah, they're not. I don't know. They're those people that they're like people from Vancouver, right? They'll tell you they're from Vancouver.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we don't have any listeners from Vancouver yet, so all
Okay.
right. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Dustin, and we'll hopefully talk on the weekend.